I'm Alex.
I'm Jason. We're the Table Monkeys, and today we are going to conclude our strength training program by talking about peaking and deloading.
Yes, so peaking is that last training cycle leading up to a competition. Now, I've got a competition coming up this Sunday, so it's relevant information.
And I'm competing at Tweed in the beginning of October, so I'm just starting my peak for that, so also relevant information.
Yeah.
And deloading is something that you're going to have to do depending on when you get to compete at some point in your training cycle, because you can't just progress continuously. So we're going to touch on deloading at the end, because a lot of the deloading concepts are covered in the peaking concept. So we're just going to start with peaking because that's part of the process that we're in right now.
Yeah, and this is something that we've been working on since the beginning of our arm wrestling career. We haven't obviously nailed it down to a complete science right now. These are just what we feel is kind of a really good guideline to go with.
Yeah, it's something that you use in powerlifting and is very kind of ironed out of how you should do it in powerlifting. So we have an idea from there, and then like Alex said, since we've been arm wrestling, we've been trying to adapt it to arm wrestling, and there's so many different concepts out there when you talk to arm wrestlers about how to do it or what the right way of approaching it is. So again, this is just from our 2 years of experience now and the knowledge we had beforehand, and kind of our trial and error, making mistakes and feeling what's worked and what hasn't. This is kind of the most complete version that we think of peaking that should work for most everybody. But again, like the rest of this whole program, it all comes down to some sort of auto regulation. So you're going to have to adjust it probably for yourself, but it's a good starting block.
Yeah, because it all depends on your level, how strong you are, your age, your recovery abilities. There's so many factors, so you will have to take this information and then match it to yourself.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with like a 4-week out period of time. Usually you will have that much amount of time to prepare. You'll know about the competition leading up to it, so it's a good place to start. So what we have is 4 weeks out is our last hard table session.
It's not our last table session,
no.
but it's the one in which we want to feel the most fatigued, have put in the most work, have gone the hardest, and this day should be where we're at our most fatigued, but also at our sort of most progressed.
And we're also being very specific on this day, so that means ready goes, practicing what you're going to do on competition day, in a tournament, a super match. So you want to be hitting the exact same lanes that you're going to be doing on competition, so you're prepared
as much as possible. Pulling with people like the people that you're going to pull. So if you're lucky enough to have a big team like we do, if you know somebody pulls similar to somebody that you're going to be going against, try to go with that person. If they're not strong enough but they have a similar style, use bands like Alex said, so that you can make it what it is you want to do on competition day and to the highest intensity possible. So like comparing this to powerlifting, this would be like your heaviest squat, your heaviest deadlift. This is the max effort day if it were powerlifting. So the point of that again is specificity. It's the most specific and to the highest intensity.
Yeah, so now moving into the gym, and this is going to be kind of the beginning of our wave up in intensity throughout this peaking cycle. So obviously you're going to need to auto-regulate a little bit, but in an ideal situation, we're hitting 80% in that range for our primary compound lifts, in that 8 to 10 rep range. So it's a moderate intensity, moderate rep range, and leaving a couple reps left in the tank, so we have room to progress as the weeks move forward.
Yeah, exactly. And so just to explain a couple things in that, the first thing let's talk about is RPE. The idea behind RPE is of rate of perceived exertion. We've talked about it before, but the concept is just like an 8 would be you have a couple left in the tank, a 9 would be like maybe one, maybe a few more pounds, and a 10 would be like you're absolutely maxed out. And that can be applied to a 5x5, a set of 3, a single, anything. It's just an idea of how hard was this set for you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like Alex said, you want to start the wave, and now what a wave is the idea that from week to week we're going to progress and then we're going to reset. Ideally, if it was just like a video game and we could just program things and they would just come out, that's how we would want to always progress our weight, like our training in the gym. We would want to have these waves where we're always going up and we're always moving up by like one block. So light, medium, heavy, and then the next time your light was your old medium, and so on and so forth. it's not going to work like that for arm wrestling.
No.
That's why we auto-regulate, because the way you pull is going to affect which wave, like which part of that wave you get to do. Sometimes it's like heavy, light, medium, because it's just how you're beat up, right?
But that's why we're trying to control our table sessions a little bit more during this period. So
Exactly.
hopefully we're able to
actually do a light, medium, heavy progression. So like Alex said, we're starting at that 80%, 8 RPE, 8 to 10 reps, and then the next week we're going to move down in reps, up in intensity, and so on, so that we're sort of peaking our strength in a weightlifting or powerlifting style, while letting our table time come down in the sense of being more fresh and ready for actual pulling.
Right. So our next table session, we're still going to keep the intensity high because we want to practice our specific movements on the table again. So maybe that's a few ready goes to start, and in that same lane that you wanted to compete with. But volume is going to be dropped a ton here. So do the few ready goes that you need to get in just to practice your move, and then drop off and
maybe a little bit of blood flow used, because again, we're 3 weeks out still, so we want to keep our readiness up. Like, we want to be familiar with what we're doing on the table, but we don't want to create a lot of fatigue in our connective tissue, because it does take, regardless of whether you're natural, whether you're not, whether you're resting, whether you think you heal up really fast, it takes a good 14 to 21 days for connective tissue to really be like free of inflammation. And sometimes, like Devin said, it took him 6 weeks, and there's lots of pancakes involved. So it doesn't matter what's going on, you need time to heal. So that's the objective here. Some intensity, not very much volume, and then again, the weights were relatively light, so we should be starting to feel fresher going into our next week of weights, where now we're going to be in that like 85%, that 9 RPE, and that like 6 to 8 rep range.
Yeah, exactly. So onto our second to last pulling session. So this is 2 weeks out. Now we're going to drop the intensity, and the volume can be more moderate now. Because we dropped the intensity, it's not going to fatigue us too much, it's not going to fatigue our central nervous system or our tendons too much, but we still want to get a little bit of blood flow in there.
And we want to get a lot of practice.
Yes, so we can get more practice in. No ready goes, obviously, because the intensity is low, but we can still practice in the lanes that we're going to be in, but with low intensity.
One of the things we really like to do around this time, when we're feeling like this is the session we're doing, is a lot of setups. So a lot of just fighting in the setup for grip, getting what you want, but not like pushing like for center too much, because you want to keep your elbows fresh, but a lot of fighting with the hands. And then, like Alex said, like he'll let me, if let's say I want a high post, he'll let me hit the high post and just kind of go where I want, not give too much resistance, but again, squeeze and make me feel like I've got a hand to go through. You're not going to build a lot of fatigue doing that, as long as you keep the intensity low and you don't do it for 4 hours like nonstop.
Right, so you got to be smart here. If you're somebody that can't really control themselves when they get to a practice, maybe this is not a good idea for you.
Yeah, maybe you should literally just have somebody hold a band for you, just off to the side a bit, and just a little bit of tension going that way, so that you are kind of conditioning this starting position, so you're good at holding that start position.
And you can change the angles a little bit, so I'm attacking different parts depending on what they want to practice, obviously.
But the point is that you really have to control your output on this day. Like the reason we just went over all that is for anybody who can't. Like, once they grab a hand and they start pulling, they're gonna drive to the side hard. Like, that's not gonna work on this day. So you want to just condition and practice. That's the point. So this starting position, just reinforcing your mind muscle connection to like the most important thing, riser or pronator, that's going to work on this day. But again, low intensity.
Yeah, and we really this is so important, because obviously this week is our last heavy week in the gym, and we want to make sure that we're fresh enough to be able to hit the numbers and the intensities that we want to hit. So in this week, for our primary compound lifts, we want to be in that 90% range. So we're going pretty darn heavy, and in that 5 to 6 rep range, and
like 10 RPE.
We want to hit a maximum effort set, so hitting that 10 RPE where there's 0 reps left in the tank and you could not add any more weight.
So the idea here, like if it's 4 sets that you're doing, your 4th set should be the heaviest weight that you've attempted up to this point in the gym with that movement, and you're basically like, it's something you think you can get 4 or 5 reps with, and you're trying to get 6 reps. Like, that's the idea with this last week.
But you're not going to be able to do that if 2 weeks out
you actually pushed yourself on the table. It will not work. So that's why, again, going back to that 2 weeks out table session, in our mind, in the way that we've kind of done everything, we feel that is the most important table session, because if you push it too hard on that table session, the rest of your peak, it's not going to work. I mean, it'll still work out a little bit, but you're going to be behind. You're not going to be able to push your weights the way that you want. You're not going to get this rebound on your strength that you're looking for, and you're going to feel more beat up than you should when it comes time for competition.
Right. The reason why we pushed so hard in this last week is to build a level of fatigue that once we recover and our body has time to rest, when we're actually fully recovered, we're actually stronger than we were before.
It's like a super compensation
effect where because of all the hard work we did and then that hard rest we did, we're actually at a 105, 110% level of strength for the competition day.
Yeah, exactly. But with arm wrestling, you have to make sure your elbows and your joints feel good and your mind feels ready to fight and hit all these movements. So combining those two things of being peaked for strength, but also peaked for like fighting or physical performance on the table is two different things. And that's why this overlap of like hardest table session 4 weeks out, and then it comes down and down and down, where we're just practicing to the last table session where we're literally just holding hands for a second, doing the tiniest little movements on the table. But our strength is progressing, so that again, when we hit the table, we're as strong as we can be, but we're also as ready and as prepared to arm wrestle as we can be.
Yeah, so that's basically the 1 week out table session, where all we're going to do is grip up and look for the setup that we're going to use on competition day. Do a little hand squeezing, feel our hands a little bit, and then
that's it.
Well, that's it. Maybe a touch of blood flow work if you're able to control yourself. But if not, then just leave practice and go home.
Honestly, at this point, we're doing so much recovery work, as we're going to go over in a second. The blood flow is unnecessary unless, like Alex said, unless you are fully confident in your ability to control yourself. Just hold hands, and that's it.
Yep.
Go home, watch people pull if you want, have some beers, do whatever it is you do, but do not put out any real effort that day, especially not in any of the lanes that you want to use. At this point, we want all that connective tissue and all that muscle and everything to just start resting and recovering to its maximum potential.
Yeah, and then the rest of the week will be just recovery and rest as well. So right after that session, 1 week out, we're going to do our recovery session. So we made a video showing our recovery session earlier in this program. So that's what we're going to do the next day. And then a couple days later, we're going to do the same thing. So on the Tuesday, basically. Yeah. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, nothing, rest, do a little bit of walking, a visualization, and that's it.
Yeah, walking, some sort of very light, steady state cardio is a good idea, just to move lactic acid out, but nothing with any intensity, nothing that your body has to recover from at all. Only things that are going to either relax you or aid recovery. And then, like Alex said, lots and lots of visualization.
So that finishes the peak. The next day is obviously Saturday, which is usually most people's competition day. And so what do you do on competition day? Do you just roll in and no warm up, get on the table and ready, go? That's it? Like a lot of people do.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah, even some of the most elite pullers in the world, Mikey Todd, does not warm up before his matches, which is insane to me. Yeah. You have to warm up before you get on the table, before you do anything explosive. So what we're going to talk about now is how do you warm up on competition day.
And what is kind of the concept behind the warming up. Just understanding how your muscles work and how the body works a little bit. When you fill your muscles with blood, the veins dilate, so they open up a little bit because they're now transferring a whole bunch of blood in and out of the muscles. But the muscles also, the muscles are surrounded by fascia. Well, as the muscles swell with blood, the fascia